everybody, and welcome to As the Walk Returns. I'm Mandy, and this is Jared. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. It's great to be here as always.
Same.
How has your week been?
It's been a week. It's been a week, Jared, but I'm glad to be here. And it's a beautiful sunny day. It's 8:38. Yes, I'm happy to be here today.
Okay. Well, before we get started with the meat and potatoes,
okay,
let's talk. I always love it when you rehash some old stories from your long career in senior living.
Yes.
So surely you've got something.
I have one.
Top of mind.
All right.
Just one?
Oh, I have many, but
okay,
I have one. It came to mind.
Okay.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes. But wow, that was deep. And controversial. I don't know if we have time for that.
I don't know. I'm not going to make a judgment. I'm just going to report the facts as they were reported to me.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm opening up a building that was a former skilled nursing building. So kind of like what a traditional nursing home would have been 30, 40 years ago. Been completely shut down. We were gutting it, renovating it, and we were going to turn it into all memory support. So we were at the point of staging the building. So moving all the furniture in, just getting everything ready. And we had this huge room. And we had just a few staff to kind of help us out. It wasn't fully, opened at that point. So we had this room. You all right?
I'm bracing myself. I'm just gonna sit back, hold on to the armchair.
Okay, here we go. So we had this room.
I'm really not sure where this is going.
It's not a great. Okay, anyway, we had this room that had a bunch of office filing cabinets and things in it, just boxes and random. So we asked this caregiver, could you please go in and grab a couple boxes? We need to unload. And he's like, sure. So the next thing you know, we hear screaming, and the staff member is pinned underneath a large cabinet. And
wait, he's pinned
on the ground.
Or her?
Him. He was pinned on the ground under this cabinet.
Okay.
And
wood cabinet, metal cabinet?
My understanding was a pretty heavy wood cabinet.
Okay.
Okay. So, of course, staff respond. What happened? Thinking maybe he tried to move the cabinet, tried to get something, climbed on the cabinet, whatever. Cabinet said
gravity took its course.
And this was in California. There was no earthquake. I'm thinking, what could have possibly moved said cabinet? And he said a ghost picked up the cabinet and threw it on him. So, the bad
Midday?
part... Middle of the day.
Wow. You don't normally hear ghost stories middle of the day.
No, you don't. So I had to we had to call 911. The poor man was really hurt. He ended up having to have surgery. He recovered. He was okay. But filling out the OSHA report, I had to literally fill out ghost through cabinet at staff member because that was what he stated. So anyway, you never know. You never know what you're going to be putting on federal documents, but that's what happened. Ready to go?
I am. On that note, I am ready to go. So, just quick question: Does the guidebook reference anything about checking out communities for ghosts?
No, there's no ghosts. But I will tell you, some communities maybe a little superstitious. Don't be afraid don't be surprised if you see maybe some bundles of sage. Or I've had an executive director once bury some kind of medallion. We've had priests go through and bless buildings before with a whole. Yeah, you never know what you're going to see. So yeah.
Well, turning the corner from the superstitious.
Yes.
So I believe one of the next chapters in the guidebook that we haven't talked about previously is essentially must-haves versus want-to-haves. And so how do you separate those, and how is that? Because I'm assuming that from the potential resident perspective versus the family perspective, those must-haves versus want-to-haves can sometimes be at odds or at conflict. So how do you navigate this?
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of where
easier said than done, I'm sure. But
yes, the less decision makers, the less conflict there's going to be. So bigger families or bigger, I don't know, groups of friends or influencers.
Personalities too.
Also a big, Whoever's the loudest, I sometimes wins. I think that's, as I'm looking for my mom as well, that was one of the first conversations that we had to have. And this is going to come down to geographical location. So it's like 2 different states, totally at different sides of the country. And for her, her number one must was, I want to be near family. Okay, but that means a lot of things. Like, it's 2 different states. Like, what family do you want to be near? So that was like kind of her biggest conflict. I would say the next big thing for her is, am I going to be able to make friends? Any community you can make friends. So those were her must-haves. I want to feel safe, I want to have friends, and I want to be near family. Okay, great. Then everything else is like secondary.
Bells and whistles.
It's totally bells and whistles. And so she actually took it upon herself recently to go visit a few communities. She's back at home now, and she went into all of them, and she just said, everyone was very nice, they were lovely, but I just liked the other community better. I had some, I just liked the layout, I liked the lighting, I liked the room, but either option were equally possible for her. And so then it came down to the amenities of the building. So I think when you're having these conversations with your loved ones or your friends, that's probably the first conversation after you talk about money, right? Because if you don't, you got to figure that out. Then it doesn't matter. We all want to go to Fiji, and that'd be great, but not everyone can do that. So I would say that's probably the first thing. Figure out the money. Then after that, then you sit down and just say, mom or dad or whoever, these are my 3 things that I cannot negotiate on. Like, I must have these in order to be happy. And then after that, you can go from there.
So what about, you were just talking about that predominantly from the resident perspective. What about the
family perspective?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's some continuity there. So for me, it's certainly safety, and safety is subjective, right? Like, what does my level of needing to be safe might be different than other people's, but I think that the staff for me. So my must-haves for my mom, yes, it's going to be safety. Yes, near family. And then also I'm going to have kind of a little bit of a longer list in terms of, does it have the level of care if she ever eventually needs memory support? That is a must for me. And mom agreed that once we talked about it, I'm like, okay, these are yours, these are mine, mom. I don't want you to have to move rooftops. Like, I want you to stay with the same staff, and I want you to be able to, be comfortable. And she agreed. Yeah, and so she agreed with that must for me. The other thing for me that I'm looking for that is a must is just the care and kind of how the operations run, because those can be so incredibly they just set the tone for the building. So I'm looking at that. She would have no perspective on that, and that's kind of why I have that insider's view. Probably most consumers wouldn't have that. So I think for the other family members, it's going to be, do you just feel it? Do you feel good when you walk in? Do you feel, how is the customer service when you got there? How is it when you leave, and do they follow up? Do they really feel like, you're just another, another number, or do you really feel like they're going to include you in part of their family? So that would probably be a good tip.
So on the guidebook, I know you have essentially an exercise for folks to fill out.
Yeah.
5 must-haves, 5 might want-to-haves. Is it your recommendation that essentially those be on a parallel track from the standpoint of both the potential resident and the family members, and that there's not 2 separate lists?
Yes, you need to
essentially get agree before the process starts.
Correct.
On what those are.
Yes.
So you're both in the same.
Yeah, it's very important that you have these conversations with your family members before you start touring or before you start investigating, because what ends up happening is when the families are not in alignment, or the residents are not in alignment with the family members, the communities end up being in the middle, and you almost become social workers or like clergy to some effect. I mean, the things we hear are just insane. So
or it becomes an issue of somebody had a good experience with a staff member, or they liked something about the food or the decor or whatever,
right.
And it becomes more about that internalization of what was their feeling there, rather than necessarily did it meet the must-haves.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, we went and looked at 2 communities that were equally nice, I would say, as far as the aesthetic was concerned, but I happened to know the operations behind the scenes on the one building, and we walked out, and Mom was like, it's really nice. I said, it is, Mom, but I just need to give you some more information about this. And she's like, okay, well, we don't have to do that one. I'm like, okay. So she's just relying on, yes, but we knew going in, like with the siblings that are participating in this, these are our non-negotiables, and then from there, it made the search a lot quicker. Right. Because if you were to Google, I know we're going to talk about this, but if you start Googling senior living, I mean, you could spend 6 months searching every community in your neighborhood. So it having that saves everybody a lot of time and concern.
So turning the corner into what you just mentioned about how do you start this search? I mean, is it literally to what you just mentioned? Is it all Google? Are there other?
Yeah. How do you do this?
Are there other recommendations?
Yeah. Are you Yelping it? It's like
exactly.
I think it's more of like a better than a restaurant.
We have an open table review for the dining. The dining.
Right. The reservation.
Yes,
yeah. Sort of, but I would say first, if you are lucky enough to have had friends or family that have had an experience in senior living, I would reach out to them as well and just say, hey, tell me the good, the bad. Would you recommend this? Start there. A lot of times people move into communities because they've had friends or families that have good experiences. It's a lot of word of mouth. That's one piece of it, right? That's your internal kind of marketing pipeline. But most people are going to go on Google, and most people are going to use it on iPads, tablets, or their phones. Okay, right. So when you're doing that, as any kind of, like if you're on Amazon or whatever, your access to that information may be a little bit different than being on your PC. So just kind of keep that in mind. But yes, they're going to Google. And the first thing they're going to put in, some of the keywords are going to be like nursing home, like old folks home, or it's going to be, I don't know what take my mom off my plate.com, like whatever. It's going to be, I don't know. I should actually look at that. Anyway, so that's what they're going to start searching for. And when you start putting in broad search terms like that, you're going to get all those different levels of care that we talked about. You're going to get everything from maybe like someone just coming out of the hospital, skilled nursing, rehab, all the way to like inpatient, maybe geri psych for those that are having serious mental health issues. So I would get a little bit more nuanced in terms of your search if you want to narrow it down, especially if you're looking at assisted living or memory support or independent living, because those, again, have huge search. You can go look at 20 independent living communities alone. So I'd say Google. Obviously, when you do Google, you're going to get your sponsored ads up at the top, right? People are paying to be there. And then the next thing that you're going to get are a couple of companies, and I'm just going to preface this that I have a biased view on this, okay, when it comes to paid referral agencies. I'm just being real upfront and transparent about you. But there are good and bad to everything, okay? So if you see a company that pops up that is, some of the examples I use in the guidebook is a place for momandcaring.com, great companies, but what you're doing is providing your information and all they do is essentially sell it to communities. Now, there's no cost to the consumer, right? And that's their big thing. Like, it costs the consumer nothing, and that's true. But it costs the community for those referrals thousands and thousands of dollars, sometimes up to 100% of the first rent's rent and care fees. So, I mean, if you're looking at, like right now, my mom, probably $7,000 a month, I mean, that is a significant impact to the operations of the community. So the other downside of, again, good side for the consumer is that they're going to narrow down the search for you based on what parameters you put in. So that's a good thing. The bad thing for the consumer is that when that lead comes in, because you just pay to play, right? So let's just say there's 30 communities in that market and they all want these leads. They all get it at the exact same time, okay? And then your phone, if you're looking, is going to implode. It is going to just completely melt down with everybody on the phone trying to call you all at once. So if that's not something you're interested in.
It's basically like mortgage lending. When you apply for a new home loan and boom.
That's exactly what that is. They are kind of that, I don't know, is clearinghouse the right word? I don't know what the right word is, but they are really just a data kind of hub to then get the leads out, and that's how they make their money. There are also local.
So in other words, again, just for reference on that, they're not vetting out the communities from the standpoint of any care necessities that your mother or father or family member needs. This is basically just a pipeline.
I mean, that's a complicated answer. The truth of the matter is, are they coming in and vetting the communities regularly? No.
Right.
They are reliant on the communities to put in pictures, pricing, availability, events, all that. And then they award communities their own awards for most move-ins or whatever their criteria is. They're not a governmental regulated, kind of situation.
Yeah.
So no.
So I have to ask, because as somebody that looks at online reviews when I'm picking out a restaurant or
yes.
basically purchasing anything online.
Sure.
What do you think of online reviews as it relates to senior living? Because I'm assuming that, when you're dealing with family members, when you're dealing, you can have, I'm assuming situations that become very difficult very quickly.
Yes.
And you can also have other individuals that have completely and totally great experiences.
Right.
And so I'm assuming that as it relates to online reviews, there's a little bit of grain of salt.
Yes.
To how folks should look at us.
So we're not an industry where we have we're hiring bots or we're hiring these fake people wherever to write reviews. Okay, that's just not how the industry, not in my experience, how the industry works. So they are real reviews. However, with any kind of review, I go to restaurants too. I rarely leave a review unless something was so outstanding, that I really felt like they needed. Or so horrible, right? So you're not getting the vast majority, the 80% of the true experience at senior living. You're getting the extreme ends of things. So if you get a negative review, we've had them. I think the first thing that I would do is look at the response from the community. Are they immediately responding and saying, I'm so sorry, call me so that we can figure this out? Or are they just ignoring it? Okay. So also you have in our industry, we have a situation with, employees may use that as a venue for leverage for whatever purposes they want, right? So just again, if you see something that's below a 4-star, but it looks really great online, go in and look at some of the reviews. But again, take everything with a grain of salt, because you don't know. Oftentimes, it may not be the family member that is with mom or dad all the time. It's the one that flies in from a never part of the country, sees mom for 1 hour, and then comes back and not always, but I'm just saying. And it's a fair thing to ask the community. Just say, hey, I looked on your reviews. Can you tell me the story behind this? They can't give you confidential medical information, but they can give you the context behind it and say, look, maybe we had a service failure here, and this is what we did to fix it going forward. There is no operation that is perfect. We are dealing with incredibly complex situations, high emotions. So read them, but just take them with a grain of salt.
Social media.
Same. Right?
But does it also should it give a glimpse into what daily life is like?
Yeah, if the communities have made it a focus, and again, we've talked a little bit about reputation issues with, media on senior living, and it just, if you were to read if you were to Google senior living, of course, you're going to get all these hit pieces that you're seeing from the media. Well, the only way that the communities can combat that is with the truth of what's really going on in the communities. And there's just so much love and positivity. That's how we are all trying to actually show the reality of things. I can't control, one person's personal agenda, but I can control being truthful and transparent about what happens. And the residents generally love it, and the families comment, and they like seeing their family members happy and participating.
So when you, what should be easily accessible for the potential consumer in terms of when they're looking at a community's website? From the standpoint of what should they expect to be able to find, what should they not expect to be able to find, and is more based upon an in-person visit at that community?
Okay.
Our prices, for instance, is that something that should be online? Should they not?
So that's a hot take. That is personal passion of mine.
I have a tendency to jump on every number.
Yeah, so I thank you. Appreciate that. Another ghost story?
There's another?
I have a couple. I personally, that's just a philosophy of myself and the company. We believe in putting pricing online. It might be starting pricing, but there's no reason why the consumer should not be able to know what you're getting into. Why? I don't know. You can buy a car, a house, anything you can find prices on nowadays. This is very different when I started 20 years ago. I think there are some companies out there that believe that the prices might scare people. But if you don't know and you think maybe, again, money's a concern and you might be on the border, why are you wasting your own time and the community's time if that's just not a feasible option for you? So there should be starting prices, absolutely. There should be pictures, hopefully videos. There should be explanations about what we do, what we don't do. There should be probably menus, activity calendars, resources. If, for instance, maybe you're not ready to make a move, but you need Alzheimer's, association, or you need maybe grief counseling, or you need whatever the situation is. There should be access to other resources for you. The nice thing about senior living is, let's just say you call a community and it's not a good fit. Every time I've ever worked with a community, they will then just ask the question, where should I go? They will help you. Right. This is an industry of caring and loving other humans. And so don't feel afraid to ask the question, and be honest with them. My mom is not, this is I'm at a community today. This building is probably too big for my mom, truthfully. So, okay, if that's the thing, then what do you recommend? If it was your mom, where would you put her?
Right.
And they'll tell you, they'll be honest.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great chatting.
Thank you.
As always. I'm very interested in the follow-up ghost stories for next time.
Okay.
Or maybe stories other than ghosts.
I got all sorts of stories, yeah.
Because I'm sure there are multiple things that we can unpack.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yep, great to be here.
Thanks.
And until next time.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.